Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the World at War Comics podcast. Today, my special guest, Mr. Simon Furman, Transformers Hall of Famer, Marvel great, and now with his new title with Massive, Astro Bots. Simon, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think most fans, when they see this, they're going to connect your name to Transformers, as it should be. You've had such an amazing impact in that entire world. About what, 30 years of writing off and on Transformers?
It's closer to 40 now.
Oh, wow.
I wrote my first Transformer story probably tail end of 1984 or early 85. So, it's the 40th anniversary this year, and yeah, I'm almost been there the whole time.
That's excellent. I mean, what a amazing career. Have you always felt, or do you feel today, grateful for that long run on just one title? Or, I mean, it wasn't one title. You did a lot of Alpha Flight and a lot of other things, but that's a long time to be on one title off and on.
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously, it's almost underpinned my entire career, which is great. I mean, obviously, I like to be doing other things, some of them creator owned, some of them for companies. So, it's great to be able to do both. I'm old time Marvel fan. So working for Marvel, first in the UK, then the US, was some kind of dream for me anyway. So I'm just happy to be working in comics still.
Well, your impact on Transformers has been incredible, not just in comics, but also in animation, correct?
Yeah, I wrote the final episode of the Beast Wars TV series, but that actually was it for the animated side of things. But yeah, nice to have got one little screen credit in the Transformers TV side of the equation. But I'm working on several Transformers games at the moment, and hopefully at some point be back writing some comics as well.
That would be amazing. As you know, Skybound in the US has the rights to Transformers. Have you kind of been paying attention to what's going on there with Daniel Warren Johnson and what he's doing?
Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. It's always nice to see a fresh take, a fresh pair of eyes on, as you say, something that's 40 years old now, but yeah, I'm really enjoying it so far. I like the kind of interlinked universe it's in. So yeah, definitely on board for the ride.
Yeah, it's been quite enjoyable, and there's kind of been a resurgence. I mean, Transformers is always very popular, but there's almost been a resurgence in people my age going back to the book. It's been a little while because there's been a little bit of a gap, so it's quite enjoyable to read, like you said, a fresh take on the Transformers. But I have a feeling Daniel Warren Johnson still is holding your stuff pretty close to his chest as he's building out this Energon universe with GI Joe.
Sure. I mean, like I say, it's just good to sort of see fresh blood come in, to see a new sort of perspective on it, and like I say, I've been doing it for 40 years, and it's good to have a reset every now and then. And the great thing about Transformers is it does transform. People come in, they have their own take on it. Even within the 17 years of IDW, you got a whole load of different kind of creative voices and artists behind it. And I think that's what's kept it going for all this time.
Yeah. Simon, being on it for as long as you have, what is the secret of coming up with new stories? Because you've done quite a bit, right? So, what is that secret to try and figure out what to do next with all those amazing characters?
I think that's it. They're such amazing characters. You never run dry of stories. I've always looked at them character first, and I love the big ideas and the great stuff as well, but the characters are so rich. It's hard not to find stories to tell about them. And every time I think, I've told everything there is on that character, you find another angle or another situation to put them in, or you find a character that you've never really got to grips with before. Recently I did a series called Transformers 84, which sort of went back to the beginning of the Marvel series. And there was a character I'd never really used before in that. And it was great to tell it from their perspective.
That's amazing. Incredible. Well, I mean, amazing career in Transformers. Can we move over just to some of the other Marvel stuff? I mean, your Alpha Flight run was quite a run. I mean, it was over 100 issues, if I'm not mistaken.
No, no, it wasn't as much as that.
Oh, well, I thought it was.
No, I took over Alpha Flight on well, I had a backup story in issue 109, and
Okay.
then I took over fully in 110, and that went to the end of that first series. So overall, with all the bits and pieces, the North Star miniseries and the Alpha Flight special, I think it was sort of 25 or so
Oh, okay.
issues I did.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was great. It was my main bit of Marvel mainstream, if you like, back in the sort of early mid 90s. And
Yeah.
I loved it, absolutely loved it.
Then you got on X-Men, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Well, I did a bunch of What If X-Men
Mm-hmm.
stories, but I did a little bit of work for the animated X-Men show around that time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, that was really fun as well. Beast Wars led me into a clutch of different series that I got to work on, and one of those was X-Men Evolution, I believe it's
Yeah.
called. So, they again wonderful to get just to work on that. And I'm a big X-Men fan, so it's another kind of itch scratched, really.
Yeah. So, you also write for video games too, if I'm not, is that correct? You're doing
Yep.
that still right now, right, with Transformers?
With Transformers, with a couple of other things as well. Again, Transformers has just opened doors from working on a few Transformers games with those companies or with the people from those companies. I'm now working on just some other game stuff. It's an interesting medium to work in, different to comics. Involves a lot of writing on spreadsheets, which I don't love, but I love the collaborative team element of it. And yeah, I'm working on, well, recently, I mean, I've been on Transformers Earth Wars, which is a little mobile game for 7+ years now, just writing new storylines for that. Recently, Outright Games bought out a Transformers Earthspark game called Expedition. So I worked on that. And there's two or three others sort of still, in progress and hopefully coming out over the next year or so.
Wow. Now, is your approach when you go to comics, whether you're working on animation or video game, do each of them have a separate approach of how you write?
Maybe the mechanics of writing,
Okay.
but the actual sort of development of the story, I always work on exactly the same principles, really. Just make sure that they're involving, that the characters say something about the people, watching or reading them. You want your characters to evoke an emotion in the reader or the watcher. And I've always thought character was right at the heart of any kind of good storytelling. You can have the most amazing, I don't know, murder mystery or science fiction concept, but if the characters aren't good, if they're not involving, if you can't relate to them, it's not really going to work as a story.
Yeah, no, that's such a good point. Um, what can we go back in time of how you kind of came into comics the first time? I mean, did you know from a very young age that you wanted to tell stories, and were you already kind of doing your own storytelling before you fell into comic books?
Yeah, I mean, as a younger kid, I mean, I read comics, devoured comics, in fact. I mean, I read a lot, full stop, but comics particularly I loved. Initially the British comics of the day, which were sort of multi-story, often black and white comics,
Mhm.
and then discovering through the reprints Marvel comics. And yeah, I mean, I absolutely love comics, and yes, often used to create kind of illustrated stories rather than my own comics. I can't draw to save my life, so it was prose with a few fairly poor drawings in them. But yeah, I mean, I was creative. I loved to tell stories, and really, I lucked into it a great deal. I was working for a publisher called IPC Magazines, who had a comics division, and almost sort of sideways, I moved into that area and I took up as assistant editor on a new title called Scream, which was a kids horror comic, but creepy rather than outright horror. And that that gave me my first script writing chances because often deadline crunches and things, I just had to step in and write something, often overnight. So
Amazing.
yeah, it was that was sort of learning it at the cutting edge really, and I was lucky because in the same office complex we had 2000 AD,
Yeah.
which was the sort of premier British sci-fi comic of the time, which I read, and I was able just to sort of hang around the offices and read scripts. I read a lot of John Wagner Dredd scripts and Pat Mills scripts, and I just kind of learned how they're put together and how, lean and mean, say John Wagner's scripts were. He almost minimum description, and he just trusted the artist completely. And so yeah, I had some good stuff to look at and learn the craft from.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Can you talk about your time at Titan? If I'm not mistaken, you were the editor there as well, right?
Yeah, Titan sort of mid 90s, the comics industry kind of imploded a bit, and a lot of the titles I was working on got canned. Alpha Flight went, and a few others in swift succession. And yeah, I kind of found myself in need of going back. I've done editorial before at IPC and Marvel. So I just went back to being an editor for a while, and I got a job at Titan. And that was great. I was sort of running their graphic novels publishing program, a lot of which was reprint, but there were odd bits of origination and stuff going on there. But while I was there, and this was just before Transformers came back in the early 2000s, I suggested to them that they reprint all the Marvel UK and US Transformer stories. They were no longer Marvel's license, so we approached Hasbro and pretty much just sort of snagged that license before Dreamwave and that whole sort of wizard reinvention of Transformers came in the early 2000s. So yeah, we were sort of republishing Transformers and hit that moment where it was suddenly all back in the front and center. I can't, did you say something? I can't hear you there. Weird, I've lost your sound.
Can you hear me now, Simon?
Yeah, got it.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So I don't know what happened with my mic, but I think it's fixed now. Yeah, I mean, that sounds like it was perfect timing for Titan at the time. How did you enjoy being an editor, or during that time frame did you miss like fully being engulfed in telling stories?
Yeah, I mean, I missed it, but I like being an editor. Being an editor is very satisfying itself because you get to work with lots of really good creative people. And Titan were very open to, getting into the sort of behind the scenes comics world. And we did a whole series. We did a couple of volumes of Writers on Comic Script Writing, which was famous writers just talking about their art and craft. We
Oh,
did Artists on Comic Art and various specific ones. We did comics creators on Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, X-Men, and we got some utterly amazing interviews and art from that. So, I was never far really from the comics world and all the people I knew anyway. So yeah, no, Titan was great. I love being an editor, but I kind of love being a freelance storyteller a lot better.
yeah. I think you're pretty good at it too, so that makes sense. Maybe we could kind of jump into Astro Bots now, Simon, if that's okay, because I'm really enjoying that first arc. Just beautifully done in the world building. But maybe we could back up a little bit because this is just a toy line that approached you about developing stories around all these amazing characters that they created, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's the brainchild of a guy called Aaron Thomas. He's a toy designer, and basically he reached out to me and said, "Look, we've got the sort of start of a storyline, the sort of main characters. What we'd like is you to come on board and, as you say, develop that whole, backstory, world build, and just start to kind of, they knew the gist of what they thought Astrobots were, and some of the structure, but they just needed, I think, a big storyline behind that. So yeah, I just came on board, and I love the toys are incredible, and I just thought this is great. This is kind of starting from scratch, which I don't often get to do. Transformers, I've often jumped into worlds already created, but here was a chance to do what Bob Budiansky and others had done back in the day with Transformers, and world build, create things. So yeah, it's been really good, building a quite sophisticated, hopefully, storyline. Not, it's you know, maybe it's a little more sort of thoughtful or political, or there's much more intrigue than in Transformers generally. But I just really, again, just wanted to tell the best story I could, and that always means getting into those characters. And even though the character of Atlas is the nominal villain of the piece, I've always preferred shaded villains, villains who aren't necessarily just out and out, well, I'm gonna conquer the world for no particular good reason. So, it was lovely to give everybody a side and an opinion on this. And yeah, it's worked really well. The first series, Hectrotronic, the artist, did an amazing job. And, the second arc is now being drawn. So we are well advanced with that, and hopefully that will come out this year. And hopefully also the trade of the first one, and then we're also working on the sort of broad strokes of a third and possibly fourth arc. So it's rolling really nicely, and as more and more toys come out, so we get to flesh out the world and the characters even more.
Yeah, I mean the toys are very intricate. I mean, just for people who collect, I'm a big toy collector, as you could see, Simon. But I mean, look at the
Yeah,
finger. I mean, everything is so detailed. It's incredible. This is Apollo, which is definitely a main character, but
yeah. I've got my
oh,
Apollo
there you
here.
go. It's amazing. Isn't the quality incredible, Simon?
Yeah,
The articulation on these is incredible. I mean, the finger has three joints. I mean,
yeah.
just to tell you how crazy this is, it's amazing.
No, they are beautiful toys, and the characters. Once we'd layered characters onto them, you just get sort of drawn into the whole thing. So yeah, I'm really enjoying that, and hope we can run with it.
Yeah, it sounds like you already are. I mean, from Athenia, which is she's complex all in her own, and is playing a very unique and dangerous role throughout Astro Bots, I would say.
Yeah,
But yeah, and then Vulcan and Artemis. I mean, it's been a lot of fun, and I really enjoy that it does feel a little bit more mature
yeah,
than Transformers, which I love. And like you said, the politics that's taking place while like disaster is on its way is such a really nice blend, and it does bring that more mature kind of you really start to question things that you're seeing even around you today, right, as you're reading this, which I think is amazing and very relatable right now.
yeah. I mean, I like to, as much as possible, you know, pull. I'm used to sort of the likes of 2000 AD, where they used to draw on, they used to parallel world events in science fiction settings. That was always part of the joy of it, really, that you could read them in two different ways. And so while I want there to be plenty of action and everything else in Astrobot, we're keen that it's saying something as well, maybe about the state of the world at the moment.
Yeah, and I think that is exactly what people want when they're reading a more mature book like that. There certainly is a lot of action, though. So anybody hearing Astro Bots, it's such a really good blend between action and in-depth kind of moral dilemmas that you really get to consider, which it was amazing. You said you're on arc two. You're already thinking about arc three and arc four. As a writer, Simon, I would love to kind of get your thoughts on how far out you think you have your story, or is it something that can you turn that off, or once you're into this world you're just constantly have like a notepad and writing notes and
No, I mean, it's evolving all the time. I mean, and a lot of that comes from when I get on a call with Aaron and we just talk through the ideas we want to explore, the places we want to go. We've barely started to explore the world of Colony World One. So we really want to broaden the scope of it. I mean, Series 2 really does, and it goes into some of the pre-story that we don't see yet. So, and we go to different bits of Colony World One, we meet new characters. So yeah, we're all the time. It's very much a where can we take this now? What can we do with it? And really, there are so few limits on it, and it's very exciting. Like I say, whenever I get on a call with Aaron, we just both have so many ideas about what we can do to expand the world we're in.
yeah, no, you're I think you're doing it. It's been a lot of fun, and as a fan, that's why I reached out to you. I'm obviously know your work from Transformers, Simon, and some of the other stuff you've done, but this most recent when I saw your name on Astro Bots, I mean, to be honest, the cover looked awesome, but when I saw your name, like, well, if Simon's writing a book about, the this type of a world, it's gonna be really good, and you did not disappoint, Simon.
Oh, well, thank you for that.
Yeah, yeah. Can you talk about, is there any other things that fans could go to that you're working on? Are you doing anything on the creator-owned side of the business right now?
Yeah, sure. I mean, over the last couple of years, Jeff Senior and we've worked together on many things from Dragon's Claws to Death's Head to Transformers. We came up with our own story called To the Death, which we put out. We put it out as a 10-issue maxi series, and it was kind of difficult to get the distribution sorted. It was hard to do it on your own back and get it into comic stores. So, To the Death is all out there, and there is, it is still available through getmycomics.com. But we're also recently with another artist called Martin Stiff. I did a graphic novel called 5 Points, which is a crime noir. Now, see, I'm a big crime noir fan, movies, books, whatever. So it was absolutely great to step out of giant robots for a while and do something in that whole genre. So yeah, and this one we published direct through Amazon. So
Excellent.
it's available both sides of the Atlantic. In fact, English speaking worldwide. So yeah, that was great as well. And that's gone down really well. So, you know, definitely some more of that in the future, I hope.
Yeah, I hope so too. You're such a good writer. I would love to see this crime noir. I'll definitely take a look at that, Simon, and make sure I order that because I really enjoy your writing and your storytelling. So, well, Simon, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming by today. I want to be super respectful of your time. Hope we could do this again after Arc 2 of Astro Bots, because I am absolutely enjoying it and I cannot wait for Astro Bots Arc 2. In fact, I had Kevin Rodatelli on yesterday, and we were talking about Astro Bots, and he was quite excited about how well that first arc did. So, Arc 2, I know, is going to be amazing.
Yeah, no, looking forward to it coming out, and thank you for having me on. I'll definitely come back again, and we'll do some more Astrobots catch up.
I love it, Simon. Well, thank you again. Have a great rest of your week, and we will talk soon.
You too.
All right, bye bye.